We all have situations that happen to us that don't quite go our way. Situations where it could almost feel like change has been dumped on us. Some of us might even experience things like collapsing under the stress of the uncertainty and the strain. But there are always those few people who just seem to cope no matter what. Sometimes it's almost as if they perform better under these circumstances. What is it about these people? Well, they have the skill of resilience. My name is Alison Coates, and today's talk is all about building your resilience. I'm going to share with you 5 habits that you can adopt really easily that will help you to boost your resilience every day. But before we start, I have a very quick question for you. How are you showing up here today, listening to this recording? It's a bit of a strange question to ask, isn't it? But I ask it quite deliberately because we can show up in one of 3 ways. We can show up completely distracted. We are here watching the video, attending the lesson, attending a course, in a meeting, wherever it may be. But we are so super distracted. We're aware that the phone might ring any second. We're also aware that there's lots going on around us. We can hear all the sounds, and we're aware of other people. We're probably thinking about what we ought to be doing at our desk or what we ought to be doing instead of watching a video. Maybe it's going and sorting out dinner. So although you're here physically, mentally, you're quite distracted. I call this, on a scale of 1 to 10, a number 1, it's a little bit like having a monkey mind. Think about it. The monkeys in the trees are all over the place. They can hardly settle on a branch. They're completely distracted by the next branch before they've even landed. So it is quite a distracted state of mind to be in, very unfocused. Somewhere in the middle is what I like to call the magpie mind. Now, the magpie is always after that next little shiny thing. So with the magpie mind, you are here, you are a little bit focused, you probably are tuning in, but every now and again you tune out because you're aware of that next shiny thing that might occur. Maybe you are waiting for a telephone call or for somebody to knock on the door. So have you got a bit of a magpie mind here today? Then the 3rd state of mind is what I like to call on the other side of the scale, a number 10, and that is completely focused. Here you have that wonderful Zen-like state of mind. You are mindfully in the moment. You're only aware of my voice, of this lesson, and of the learning that you are showing up here to do. So go ahead, quickly rate yourself between a number 1, the monkey brain, somewhere in the middle, the shiny object magpie brain, or a number 10 on the other side, the Zen-like brain. And it really doesn't matter which one you are showing up with here today. All that matters is that you notice it and that you do one thing, just one thing, to move yourself closer to being a number 10, the Zen-like mind. So go ahead. Maybe that one thing is turning your phone upside down, closing your office door, putting your notifications off. So we're here to learn all about resilience. But it would be terribly remiss of me if I didn't, first of all, take you on a journey all around how the brain works. Now, this is really important. I say to my clients all the time, if we want to understand how to improve something, we need to understand the mechanics behind how it works. And it's the same with our mindset. So, bear with me for a few moments while I take you on a journey through how the brain works. And once we can understand the science behind emotions, we start to understand how we can influence our resilience. Our brain is constantly making a decision between two options. And it does this for our survival. If it weren't for the way that our brain works and the way that it's wired, we wouldn't be breathing, we wouldn't be walking, we wouldn't have creative ideas. So it's all about survival. The first principle of the brain is all about our survival. And here's how it works. 5 times every second, that's not every 5 seconds, that's 5 times every single second, your brain is deciding whether the event or the experience that you are just about to go and do or become involved in, even just seeing my face here, listening to my voice, your brain is deciding between these two things. Is this a safe experience? Or is this a dangerous experience? Your brain is deciding between these two things constantly. In the workplace, this looks like this. Is this a safe experience? It's quite engaging, it's friendly. Or is this a dangerous experience where we feel threatened, we feel uneasy, we feel overwhelmed? All of this is happening 5 times a second without us even realizing it. And why? Because our brain is primed for our survival. These decisions that the brain makes every 5 times every second, really all about moving us away from risk or pulling us towards events that are more meaningful, more rewarding. So when our brain gets a sense that the experience, the event that we're about to go and engage in is risky, is uncertain, is threatening, makes you feel overwhelmed, not physically, but at a metaphorical level, you are actually withdrawing from that experience. You are disengaging from that experience. Versus where it's seen to be rewarding and friendly and meaningful and helpful. You can almost feel it in your body as your body wants to move physically towards that experience. This is your brain pulling you away, drawing you towards, constantly doing this. But here is the thing about this principle. Our brain is primed for our survival. So it's noticing the negative, risky, unhelpful, threatening events far more than it's noticing the meaningful, friendly, encouraging, rewarding events. Because, let me remind you, it's here for our survival. Years ago, we would have had that ragged-toothed dino or the dinosaur, the saber-toothed tiger. Now, we have other things. We have toxic work environments. We have global pandemics. We have family crises. We have financial worries. We have arguments with friends, whatever it might be. These are the different types of events that our brain is looking out for. They say that we are really only born with 2 fears. The first one being the sound of loud noises. The second one being a fear of falling, and that every other fear we have, we've learned ourselves. Isn't that interesting? This is what it looks like in our world of work. So imagine where we are today. We're in the space of a global pandemic, and we've got so many concerns. These are the types of emotions that we're going to be seeing in our friends, family, colleagues. Have you noticed any of these for yourself? People are a little bit more anxious. Maybe you are fearful, worried, disempowered, not able to make any decisions for ourselves, uncertain, feeling victimized. And we know from the world of neuroscience that the way we feel about an event, our emotions, those things that are under the water, determines how we then behave and the decisions that we make. So what we tend to see is in environments that are littered with these strong negative emotions and feelings, these are the types of behaviors that we tend to see. And these are unproductive behaviors: blame, aggression, problem-focused. A problem-focused culture, problem-focused mindset is not going to help you boost and build your resilience. Let's look at the opposite, where we have more powerful, positive emotions, where people are consulted, informed, cared for, valued. We see a different range of behaviors where people are listening more. They're happy to take on accountability. They will go the extra mile. Do you see the difference between how those feelings that are bubbling under the water, under the surface, start to affect the behaviors? And don't you think that when we speak of resilience, that it's far better to be able to be solution focused, to be able to listen carefully, to feel more engaged? These are important for resilience. We don't build resilience by avoiding challenges. We build resilience by engaging and moving through them. If all we're doing is withdrawing and not facing the challenges that we have, we are not building the skills, the coping mechanisms to face challenges in the future. The other important thing to note about the brain is it is a massive predicting machine. So the brain is constantly looking for information, for tabs of information that it can use in order to make sense of the world that we live in. And one of the topics that I'm going to talk to you about in the 5 habits speaks specifically to this second operating principle of the brain. So I will return to it when we get to that part in the presentation. So the 5 habits that I want to share with you today are habits that we can all start. If we don't already have them, we can all start to think about how could we start practicing these habits, these skills, these competencies. I have a saying that goes something like this: resilient people are not special. Resilient people are you and me. Resilient people are your colleagues. Resilient people are your friends. We are all resilient. We just have different levels of it. We didn't get to where we are today without having built and developed some level of resilience. Maybe you learned how to drive a car. That was facing up to the unknown. Maybe you went to university. That was facing up to stressful uncertainty. Maybe you bought your first home. All of these events at the time felt a little bit scary, even if you were excited about them. And pushing through those events, coming through the other side, helps you to boost and build your resilience. So let's get into these 5 skills. The first two are really important, and it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation with these two habits. But I'm going to start with my favorite one, and that is self-discipline. Resilient people make the time available and the energy available to do what is required to build their resilience skills. Resilience is not a destination. Resilience is a way of life. It is a mindset that we have. So it's not something that we just go and acquire on a day and we've got it. It's like a muscle. If we don't exercise our muscles, we lose the muscle tone. It's exactly the same with resilience. So self-discipline is your first resilient habit. And what we can do when we are concerned about or feeling like we need to boost our discipline around some of our habits is just think about what have you got that you can control and influence, and what are those things that you can't control and influence. Don't spend your precious energy, your precious mental capacity fighting those things that you cannot influence and cannot control. Rather spend your time and energy focused on those things that you can control. So self-discipline, much like a muscle, is that thing that's going to take us from being good to being really great at being resilient. The second one is all around self-awareness. In order for us to improve anything, we need to start practicing and really build our awareness of our own experience, of our own strengths and blind spots in that area that we're wishing to develop and grow. Awareness builds in 3 levels. There's awareness of self, others, and the wider world. And they say when you lack awareness of self, you are often rudderless, like a boat without a rudder. You have no direction. You're going all over the place because you are very easily triggered and drawn away. When you lack awareness of others, you can often feel clueless. You're not really sure what's going on. You're not really sure how to behave. You're not really sure what to say, how to contribute. And often your behavior, your engagement, your mood isn't quite appropriate for the occasion. You are a little bit clueless. And then when we lack awareness of the wider world, we can often be blindsided. Things come out from left field and we are left thinking, what just happened? What just happened there? Have you had any of these moments over the last 3 to 6 months? Just try gently, not with judgment, because this is a skill that resilient people have. They notice without judgment or criticism. Just gently notice, was it because perhaps you weren't quite aware of your own mood? You weren't quite aware of what was going on for other people? Or maybe you weren't quite aware because you weren't in tune with what was going on in your family, your community, your network, your business. Just do that quick assessment for yourself. Self-awareness is easy for us to start building by one very, very simple practice. Ask yourself, in the last 24 hours, how many emotions can you recall having? Maybe you want to grab a pen and a paper, pause this video, and just quickly write that down. How many emotions can you remember having between now and this time yesterday? And then when you come back, total up those emotions and have a look and see how many are positive and how many are negative. But also, was it difficult to write that list? How easy did you find it writing that list between a 1 and a 5? So if you a 3 and above, fabulous. But if it was quite difficult, I challenge you to do this exercise for the next 21 days, and let's see how your awareness of self builds. We need to make the time available for ourselves to do these activities. We need to start being more mindful when we're in the moment. You know, if you're going for a walk, or if you're going to read a book, or maybe you could even try it this evening. It's an old tip, this one, so this is not a new one. Just try it out this evening when you're brushing your teeth. Just brush your teeth. Don't think about anything else. And when you do, just notice that you've had a thought and bring your awareness back to brushing your teeth. See how easy that is to do. Our minds are often working in that monkey zone and not so often in the Zen-like zone. So just see and notice how distracted you are in doing that simple activity. We can also boost our self-awareness by journaling and also by practicing active listening. It's a great way for us to become more present, more aware, not only of self, but of others as well. So those are your first two habits, self-discipline and self-awareness. Can you see how they form this beautiful network? You need to be aware of when you have lost your discipline, but you need discipline in order to practice awareness. You choose which is your favorite one. The third habit is such a wonderful habit, and it really speaks to our collectiveness. We are individuals, but we are here as part of communities, as part of networks, as part of organizations, as part of families. We are actually all biologically hardwired for this habit. So you can't tell me that you do not have this habit at all. And this is the habit of empathy. You're probably thinking, what has empathy got to do with resilience? It's such an important habit to build. Empathy is the bridge between reacting and responding. Empathy allows us to build that awareness of others. Empathy allows others to experience us. So it is an active part of resilience. Empathy requires that we are curious, because in order for us to build empathy, we need to have some level of wanting to find out more, so that we listen more carefully, observe more carefully, pay attention. Can you see how being empathetic is going to support you in building and boosting your own level of awareness, not only of self, but also of others? When we're practicing empathy, what's really great for resilience is empathy allows us to consider another person's perspective. And this is important for resilience, because when we are faced with a challenge or uncertainty, we sometimes need to step outside of our already always listening and hear another person's point of view in order to get some suggestions about what we might do to move through that challenge. The other thing about empathy is empathy creates connection. It really allows us to connect with other people. When we feel that sense of connectedness with other people, our happy hormones are having a bit of a party. Dopamine and serotonin are released. And when those hormones are released, they have a beautiful calming effect on the body. We're put into that lovely happy state It's a positive emotion. And remember what happens when we're in positive feelings, positive emotional states? We tend to have more positive experiences. And that's what we want for resilience. We want the positive experience. We want to feel confident. We want to feel like we've got the strength to move through our challenges. The fourth habit that resilient people demonstrate, and this habit starts to get quite personal, because this habit, we're now moving in out of the empathy, the softness of resilience, and we're moving into the vulnerable side of resilience. And the fourth habit is authenticity. Resilient people are comfortable enough to seek guidance and ask for feedback. Resilient people are comfortable enough to do the work in order to understand what their strengths and blind spots are, so that they can move through challenging circumstances and times. So they are confident enough to be vulnerable and ask for feedback, seek guidance, follow instructions where necessary. And then the last skill of resilient people, and this speaks to the predictive operating system of the brain, is resilient people are intentionally positive. So I don't mean the icky Pollyanna, rah-rah positivity. I mean a realistic, grounded positivity, but it's intentional. You know, we spend 85% of our time operating almost on autopilot. This is according to the stats. So it's a big generalization, which means if we're on autopilot operating at that unconscious level, 85% of the time, 15% of the time, we are consciously aware of what we're doing. Do the maths. That's 1 day out of 7. That's a bit scary. So being intentionally positive means that we are consciously choosing positive habits, positive practices, ways that we can prime our brain for positive thoughts and experiences. It's not just about hoping for the best. It's very much about being intentional. What do you enjoy doing the most? What brings you joy? What brings you what makes you feel enthusiastic to face the day? When last did you do that? When last did you plan for those activities in your week? That is what being intentionally positive is all about. And it's so important for resilience, because resilience is about coping through adversity and hardship. And in order for us to cope, we need to have the strength to keep going, to keep moving forward. And we get that from positive, having a positive mindset and having positive experiences that can boost our confidence. A positive mindset, every time you overcome a challenge, you're getting a little boost of confidence. Every time you overcome a challenge, your brain is having a bit of a party because you've been successful. The brain loves finishing things. So boosting positivity is really important for our resilience. Positivity also is great for the immune system. There have been loads of studies that show that positive people tend to recover from illnesses quicker, and they're also less likely to get secondary infections. How relevant is that for where we are now as a globe? And when we're in a positive frame of mind, we are better able to think more clearly, to be able to contribute to problem solving and discussions in a more creative and more expansive way. And isn't that what we need for resilience? The ability to problem solve with expansive reasoning, with creative thinking, with an engaged mind that has created networks of people through empathy. So resilience is about coping through adversity, coping with stressful situations, coping with uncertainty. But it's more than that. We don't want to just cope. It's about adapting to these circumstances. It's about being agile and flexible enough to change track when you need to. So we need the awareness and the discipline to be able to identify when we need to start thinking about a different way of looking at this problem. I love that quote. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. So just remember, resilience is especially about adapting to circumstances. And the third characteristic, which I've spoken about, is that of thriving. It's that of moving through the challenges. Resilience isn't bouncing back. Bouncing back takes us back to the status quo, takes us back to the problem, to the source of the problem, to the event that created the problem. I want you to move forward past the status quo. So resilience is a forward motion. Resilience is all about understanding when you need to be agile, when you need to adapt, and learning how. Asking for feedback, seeking for guidance, authenticity, creating networks of people that you can go to for support and guidance. That's your empathy. The awareness of self to know when the right moment is for you to start thinking about changing, and the discipline to do the learning, to practice the skills, and to move through those difficult situations. All beautifully wrapped up in intentionally positive thoughts, actions, and habits. So those are your 5 key habits that help you to boost your resilience. Self-discipline, self-awareness, empathy, authenticity, and being intentionally positive. My name is Alison Coates. It was a pleasure to present this speech to you today. I run a consultancy called Revo Consultant. What we do is we help people, managers, leaders, people like yourself, strengthen their personal awareness and develop their interpersonal skills to be able to motivate and engage. If you have any questions following on from this short presentation, you are very welcome to contact me. My email address is alison@revoconsultant.com. Thank you very much.